How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the Patriot DIY channel. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to build your own Adirondack chairs. I'm also going to have digital build plans available along with templates so you can download that and build these for yourself. Alright guys, so obviously I'm not the only person on YouTube building Adirondack chairs, so this is not going to be anything revolutionary. This is just what I came up with, and I think the result is a very nice looking, very sturdy chair that makes a great project for DIYers or hobby woodworkers. Now, this entire chair is built with 1-inch treated deck boards, so it should stand up good for outdoor use, especially with the added varnish that we put on here. Another thing you'll notice about this chair is that it sits a little higher up than your average Adirondack chair. I tend to like that a little better because I think it's easier to get in and out of, and in my opinion, it makes for a lot more comfortable sitting situation rather than being super low to the ground. Now, this design is going to give you a nice natural curve to the seat and the back to make it extra comfortable, and it's going to have plenty of bracing to make sure it stays nice and sturdy and stands the test of time. Now, we'll have digital build plans for this project, and I'll have that linked in the description below. That's going to come with the build plans as well as printable templates for cutting out these shapes. Now, keep in mind those templates are not going to be sent to you in the mail. These are printable PDFs that you can either print out at home or take to your local office store to print. Then you can cut those out and use them as stencils for creating the shapes that you need to build this chair. Now, I'm going to get in here and show you exactly how we built this chair. But first, guys, if you haven't done it yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below, hit that notification bell, and give us a thumbs up. Now, let's get to work. First, we need to trace all of our shapes onto our 1-inch decking board. Now, you can do this either using the paper printouts found in the build plans, or you can do like I did and create more permanent templates. So I'm just going to place my templates on each board and trace them out, trying to fit as many pieces on each board as I can. Once I've traced out all these shapes, I'll take them over to the miter saw and cut them down into individual pieces. Then I'll take those over to the bandsaw and cut out each shape. And this doesn't have to be perfect, you just get as close to that line as you can, and we'll clean that up later on the spindle sander. And I'm going to continue that process for each of my curved or oddly shaped pieces. Next, I'm going to rip down all of my seat slats over at the table saw. Then I need to cut each of the pieces for the back slats. Now, each of these pieces is going to be tapered, and I found the easiest way to do this is by using a tapering jig on the table saw. I do have a full video on how to build a tapering jig. If you haven't seen that, I will put a link to that right here at the top of the screen. Once I set this jig to the taper that I want, I set my board in and make the first cut. Then I can place that offcut into the jig, and I'll be able to make 2 back slat pieces with each section of board. Now, along with the taper on these boards, once it's assembled, there will be a curve at the top of our chair. So to lay that out, I'm going to place 7 of my back slats against my table saw fence, so I have a nice flat surface for those to rest against. Then I measure for the center point of that middle slat and use a simple circle jig to draw out that curve along the top of each slat. Then I'll take these pieces back over to the bandsaw and cut out the curve at the top of each piece. Once I have each piece roughly cut out, I'm going to take these over to my belt and spindle sander to clean up and smooth out each edge. With all my pieces cut and sanded, I'm going to take them over to the router table and use a 1/4 inch roundover bit to round over all of the edges. And I'll continue that for all of my chair components. Then I'll give each piece a final sanding with 120 grit sandpaper to prepare it for staying. Then I'll go through and pre-stain each piece. The stain that I'm going to be using here is Old Master's wiping stain in a maple color. I also chose to pre-finish each piece with a marine spar varnish. I went with the Gleam 2.0 from Total Boat. Now for my first coat, I'm going to dilute it about 25% with some mineral spirits to make sure that it really soaks into that wood. After that first coat, I'm going to go to 100% spar varnish, and I'll be applying 3 coats of this to all sides of each component. This part is very time consuming, but I think pre-finishing each piece individually before assembly is going to give us the best, longest lasting result. All right guys, so as you can see, I'm working on several of these chairs right now. I'm actually building 3 Adirondack chairs and 1 love seat. So at this point we have all of our components cut, stained, and we have 3 coats of spar varnish on each. And inevitably I did end up with a few little runs and rough spots and stuff. So I'm going to go over each piece and I'm going to lightly sand with 320 grit sandpaper and then get ready for assembly. Now I do plan on spraying on a final coat of varnish once the chair is complete. So we'll see how that turns out, but let's get started sanding and then we'll get into the assembly. So I just very lightly sand each piece with that 320 grit sandpaper and then wipe them clean with some mineral spirits. All right guys, I'm almost ready for assembly, but there's a couple things I want to do first, especially if you're building multiple chairs. You want to go ahead and start pairing up your pieces. I'm just trying to match up color and grain pattern and stuff like that to make sure I have pieces that look good together. And then I'm going to build a simple jig just to help me hold things in place while I'm assembling it. This is just going to be a very simple jig, but I will have the dimensions and everything for that in the plans for these chairs, and that's linked in the description below. So this jig is just going to help me hold each leg exactly where I want it and perfectly square as I begin this assembly. So I start out by clamping in the front and back legs. And then I place in the seat support and clamp everything in place. Then I drill 2 holes into each leg and secure these components together with carriage bolts. Then I just turn my jig around and follow that same process for the other side of the chair. And this is where that jig comes in so handy. It holds all these components at the proper distance from each other, as well as making sure everything stays square during assembly. Now I'm ready to join these 2 sides together. So first I'm going to place in one of my seat slats just to make sure I keep the spacing between these 2 sides exactly where I want it. Then I'm going to fasten down my first stretcher, which is going to join the 2 sides together. This is also going to be where the bottom of my back slats are going to be secured later. I set it in place with a 1/2 inch overhang on each side, then countersink and screw it in with black decking screws. Now to join the top of my back legs, I'm going to mark out exactly where this piece needs to sit and test fit it just to make sure my spacing is correct. Then I'm going to be using a little CA glue to temporarily hold this in place before finally fastening it down with those decking screws. And you'll see these two components that we just put on not only join both sides together, this is also where we're going to be fastening our back slat to create that nice comfortable curve. So I start by marking the location of my center slat by finding the center of each of those two stretchers. Then I clamp that middle back slat in place with a 1 inch overhang at the bottom. Then I countersink and fasten it to both top and bottom supports with just 1 screw in each location. Now I'm going to want a 1/4 inch spacing between each of these back slats, so I just cut a piece of scrap MDF to use as a spacer while putting these slats in place. And while I'm doing this, I'm also going to be lining up the curves at the top of each piece so it lines up correctly. Now I'm just going to continue that process for all 7 of my back slats using that 1/4 inch spacer between each. With all my back slats in place, I can go ahead and start on the seat slats. I like to start here at the front, and again, I'm making sure I have a 1/2 inch overhang on each side. Then I countersink and screw it in with 1 screw on each side. I do the same thing for the front face of our seat, making sure I have a small gap between each slat. Now I'll place all the rest of my slats into position and space them out evenly before securing them to the frame. This doesn't have to be perfect, but you do want to try to get those gaps as uniform as possible. Now I can move on to the arms of the chair. First, we need to put our arm support in place. So I'm going to mark out the location and pre-drill holes for that. Then I'll clamp it down and screw it in centered on that front leg. Then I set my arm in place, making sure I have a 1 inch overhang on the inside edge of the arm and marking out those screw locations before pre-drilling and screwing it to those front legs. Then I'll make sure I have this arm nice and level before going around and securing it with 2 screws into the back leg as well. And I repeat that process for both arms of the chair. Now I want to add a little more support to these chair legs. So I've cut some pieces to fit between the legs, and I'm going to take them over to the Craig pocket hole jig and drill pocket holes into each end. Then I flip the chair over and mark the location of each of these supports, then clamp it in place and fasten it between the legs with those pocket holes facing down so they won't be seen. And I'm going to place one of these supports between both the back and front legs. And with that, assembly is complete, and I think these chairs look great. All right guys, our chairs are pretty much done. The only thing left to do is apply one more coat of that Total Boat Gleam. Now for this last coat, I think the best way to apply this is to spray it on. So I'm going to be using the Graco True Coat 360 sprayer for this. I think this is one of the best paint sprayers you can get on the market, especially for DIY and home projects. And for our final coat, I'm going to go with a satin finish. So let's get in here and get these chairs sprayed, and then we'll be done. Now you could certainly brush on this final coat once the chair is assembled, but I think spraying is going to give you the best finish. And with 4 or 5 coats of this marine spar varnish, these chairs should last a good long time. But as with any outdoor furniture, I do recommend going back every couple years, lightly sanding and applying at least 1 more coat of this varnish. Now these chairs are finally finished and I think it looks great. They're super comfortable, they're very sturdy, and they should last a very long time. All right guys, that's it for how to build your own Adirondack chairs. If you're building your own, I hope this video helped you out, and keep in mind we do have digital build plans for this project available, and you can find that linked in the description below. If you're interested in more projects like this, we will have a video coming out soon building an Adirondack style bench that pairs with these chairs perfectly, as well as an Adirondack style side table to complete the set. So if you have any questions or anything, make sure you let me know in the comment section below. Don't forget, as always, all the tools we use for this project are going to be linked in the description below. Thanks for watching guys. Please like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.